This is a tutorial on how to create doors in Unity, not how to create the actual model, but how to program the functionality with JavaScript. So right now we have a really simple level here. This is what you're going to end up making. If you walk up to this little hut, you can't walk through the door. If you press the action key, E, once, the door becomes unlocked. If you press it once again, then the door opens and you can walk through. We're also going to set up the door so it opens automatically when you walk up to it, and so you can just use the action key to open it and you don't need to unlock it. We're going to do this using triggers and raycasting. In one scenario, there's going to be a trigger zone right in front of the door that will detect the players there and open up the door. Another one, you can also put the trigger on the player. We're also going to have a raycast from the player to the door so that the door only opens when the player is facing the door and not when they're facing away from it. Okay, so go to your assets folder, doors project, and open the door open scene. Now if you simulate the game, you'll notice you can walk around and look around with the WS, A, and D keys in your mouse and jump with the space key. That's because on the main camera object there's a character controller, an FPS walker script, and a mouse look script. So what we're going to do is first set up our door so it opens automatically. There's going to be a trigger zone in front of the door that's going to trigger an open animation, and the player won't have to do anything. They'll just have to be in proximity to the door. If you click on the door object and go to Window Animation, you can press play and then just see this animation loop over and over again. This animation was created with the animation view, but you can also do it in a 3D program just as easily. So we're going to need to create this trigger zone first. Go to Game Object, Create Empty, and rename it Door Trigger. Then drag that onto the Door Game Object. Then go to Component, Physics Box Collider to add the collider. Click Is Trigger to make sure that you can pass through it, and then I'm going to position this in front of the door. Going to make it a little taller. Make sure it's touching the door there. Okay, it's pretty good. Alright, so now I'm going to need to create a script for this trigger, and go to the project folder, create JavaScript. We'll call it door trigger. Open it up. We're going to call or declare the on trigger enter function. Then in parentheses COL collider, uppercase C, and open and close brackets. And then we need to check that collider to see if it's our player. So if COL, our collider, .gameObject.tag equals, now you can, if you're going to tag it as player, just type player here, but the main camera object is currently tagged as main camera, so I'm just going to use that. So main camera. If the collider's game object is tagged as main camera, close parentheses, then open and close brackets, and we can execute logic. What we're going to need to do is play the animation on the door object, but this is a different script on a different game object, so we need to create a JavaScript for this door. Go to Create JavaScript in the project folder. We'll name it door. Drag that onto the door game object. Then open that up. We're going to make a function open and close parentheses and brackets. The open function is going to play the animation dot play semicolon. Now to access that, we're going to actually store this script in a public variable on the door trigger script. So declare public variable var door script. The type will be door, which is the name of the script, semicolon. Now click on the door trigger in the editor and drag the door trigger script onto that. Then we have the slot for the door script. Drag the door game object onto that slot, and yeah, there you go. So now the door script is in there and can be accessed in our door trigger script. So if the player enters the trigger, then door script.open will be called, and the animation will play. Oh, and the animation also, we want to name it, so call it open in parentheses, or in quotation marks. The name of the animation should just be, yeah, here. Alright, so now if you simulate the game and walk up to the door, it opens automatically, and you don't have to do anything. So, it's pretty awesome. Now we're going to set it up so, if you'll notice, if you back into it, it opens. You may not want that to be the case. Also, if you want this to only be openable from one side, then you know you can move the trigger so it's just in front of the door, like that. So when you go, like if you're already in the hut, for example, and you walk up to the door, it doesn't open for you and you're stuck. You can only open it from one side. Another way to address both of these and make it so that the player has to face the door when they're performing actions is to cast a ray from the player in front of the player and detect if it hits the door collider. So to do that, we're going to actually need to, I'm going to disable this door trigger, and then I'm going to create a new script for the player, create JavaScript, call it player, open that up. In the update function, we're going to first create a new variable to store the hit information, hit : ray cast hit, and then we're going to cast the ray and execute the logic in the same expression. So if physics.raycast, and that's a function that you can look up in the documentation. We're going to use the second function here. So we have the origin of the array, the direction of the array, the hit info, which is our hit variable there, and the distance to cast in front of you, in front of the player. So the first value is the origin, transform dot position. Second value is the direction, transform dot forward. Third value is the hit info, so that's here. And then the second value is the distance, and we'll put it at 2 meters. I'm going to close two parentheses and open and close brackets. And now we can execute the logic. Okay, so actually I'm going to also call a debug.drawRay function, so you can visualize this ray in the scene editor, which is very helpful if you've never done this before. That needs a start position, a direction, and a color. So start position, the same, transform.position, direction, transform.forward, and color.red, close parentheses and a semicolon. So now if you simulate the game, click on your main camera object and simulate it. And alright, we have to attach our player script to the main camera object first. Now if you simulate it, you can see there's a little red line in front of the player. I'm actually going to multiply this direction by 2 so it matches the distance here. So now this red line in the scene view mirrors the actual ray that's going to be cast. So if this raycast hits something, we're going to need to do a similar evaluation as this in the trigger. If hit dot collider dot game object dot tag equals, and we'll have to create this in a bit, door, then we'll execute some logic. So to tag the door, click on the door object, go to the tag manager by clicking on tag, add tag. Change the size if you need to. Type in door as one of these tags. Then go back to your door object, under tag, find door, and select it. So now if you hit an object tagged as door, then we'll call the open function. So we're going to need to get that door script again, var door script colon door. In your main camera, drag this door onto there, onto that property, and then if the ray hits the collider, door script dot open, parentheses and a semicolon. So now make sure again that this door trigger is disabled, so we're only using the raycast to open the door. Hit play, and it works. And if you back into it, you can't go through it, but if you turn around, it opens. Another effect you can observe here is that it will keep opening. It'll keep replaying this animation. To fix this, we need to give it a state. We can't tell if the door is open or closed right now. So to do that, we're going to need to go to the door script and define an enumeration. So to do that, type enum. It's going to be called door states. This is essentially defining a new data type, like a Boolean or an integer. In brackets, type open, comma, closed, and then semicolon. So the door states data type can either be open or closed. We're also going to need to declare a variable, door state, colon, door states. And this is going to store the current state of this door using this structure, the door states enumeration. In an awake function, awake, open and close parentheses and brackets, we're going to set the door state here, equal to, the values can be door states dot open or door states dot closed, and we're going to set it to closed. Then in the open function, after it plays the animation, we'll set door state equal to door states dot open. Then in our condition here, we're going to check to make sure that it's closed before we call that function, because we only want to call it if the door is closed. So if the ray hits the door collider and door script dot door state equals door states dot closed, then wrap that in another set of parentheses. Okay. So now when we play it, when we walk into it, it opens once, and that's it. You'd also want to, if you're going to use a trigger, add that same condition here. So if the trigger is entered by the camera object and door script dot door state equals door states dot closed. So now we're able to use array to only to make this a directional thing, as well as proximity. We can also tie it into user input, so it doesn't open automatically. You have to actually press a key to make it happen. So in this case, if you approach the door and it's closed, if input.get button up, and we'll call it action. Open and close. Actually, let's do that. So if you're in proximity of the door and facing the door, and you press an action key, then it will open, but it won't do it automatically. To set up the action key, go to the Input Manager at Edit Project Settings Input, add an axis here, name it Action. I'm going to set up the buttons to be E and space. Now, when I walk up to the door, it doesn't open automatically, but if I press E or space, it opens. So that's how most doors are going to work. If you want to lock a door, which is also a common game mechanic, all you have to do is add another state to the door. So right now the door can be either open or closed, but we want it, if we're going to lock the door, to be either open, closed and locked, or closed and unlocked. So I'm going to change this to unlocked or locked instead of just closed. In the awake function, I'm going to set this door state to locked, and then I'm also going to, in the update function, track the state of the door. So door debug.log door state. So you have to change this to from door states.closed to door states.unlocked. And in the player script, door states.closed is no longer a thing. So let's see. So I'm going to change this around a little bit. I'm going to delete that, add this player input expression up here. So now it says if the raycast hits the door and the player presses the action button, then we can execute logic. I think this will just make it a little bit clearer. So if the player presses the action while facing the door, if door script dot door state equals door states dot locked, I'm going to set this up so if the door is locked, then the player can unlock it, and if the door is unlocked, then the player can open it with the action key. So essentially you just have to press the action key twice. So if door script at door state equals door states dot locked, open and close parentheses, then door script dot door state equals door states dot unlocked. Else if door script dot door state equals door states dot unlocked, then the action key will set, actually then we'll just call door script dot open, the function there, and the open function will, like before, play the animation and set the door state to door state set open. Got some formatting issues here, I think. Okay, that's better. All right, so now let's try this. When we play the game, we have that debug.log in the corner here on our console telling us the current state of the door. Right now it's locked. When we walk up to it, nothing happens. When we press the action key, it goes from locked to unlocked, and still nothing's happening. If we press the action key one more time, it opens. Also, if you are far away from it and you press the action key, nothing happens. That ray has to intersect the door. There we go. Again, because it's a ray and it's direction and proximity specific, you can have this point to a keypad or something, or a button to make it just feel a little more interactive.